Hi, today I'll be making a knitted vest for a baby with an expandable neck opening, and it is sleeveless, just with some ribbing in the arm openings. It's knitted in the round for the body of it, with ribbing on the bottom and ribbing on the top for the front and back. So it's in the round, and it's split here, and we do the front and back separately. And then do ribbing for the collar on the front and back, and then do ribbing for the arm opening. So I have opted to do it in one main piece, and then do separate ribbing that I graft on for both the neck openings and for the arm openings. I will be using Drops Fable yarn. It's a 4-ply sock yarn. And I'll be using, it takes about 2 balls for this size. And this pattern is actually a hand knit pattern from Drops. And I have converted it for using the knitting machine. And if you want to look up the pattern, it's Drops Baby 33-22. I've chosen to convert the hand knitting pattern because I like to look for modern silhouettes with modern patterns, and they're not making model books anymore. So I like to go and see what the dimensions are and the general instructions are for some hand knit patterns for some styles I like, and then convert them to be able to do them on the knitting machine. And that is what I've chosen here. So I have taken the schematics, I have calculated with my gauge swatch that I made what stitch size I should use. I've calculated how many rows I'll need in each section to make the requisite height for the dimensions. And I've also chosen to do, obviously, the ribbing differently because we can't knit ribbing in the round on the knitting machine, so we'll do this differently. And I've opted to knit the ribbing separately and then graft it on, put it on waste yarn and graft it on for all 4 pieces. This part here, and then the 2 separate neck openings. Okay, so we'll get started by doing the ribbing for the bottom, and then continue on in the round up the body of the work. So to begin, I am going to put 126 stitches into work for 1 by 1 ribbing. I want 126 because when I do the seam for the ribbing, it's going to take up 2 stitches. And if I didn't have an additional 2 stitches in the ribbing, it would make a little pucker in the work. So I need 124 stitches in the round for my work eventually. So I'm going to cast on 2 more for the ribbing for that. So it is from left 63 to right 63, front and back, and every other needle. So I'm using my every other needle selector tool and pulling them all up. Now on the right, the last needle on the front will actually be 62 because the needle will be on the back for the needle rule. So I'm going to bring those up as well, and the wrecking handle should be up. So the rightmost stitch is on the back bed, and the leftmost stitch is on the front bed. Okay, let's set up the lock. N, and the stitch size is 2. And we are going to do 1 row, and I have no strippers in. Okay, we're going to go CX, CX, stitch size 3.5. And before we do that, we are going to put in a cast-on comb. Okay, now if you know me, you know I love my cast-on combs. I'm going to be mainly using one today because we are going to have to pull a short section of ribbing down to have it, to put it on the decker tool. And we're only going to have a few rows, so it's going to be rather difficult to ensure it's coming off. So I'm going to use the cast-on comb instead of strippers for the first few rows. So I'm going to use my big one because this is bigger than my X one, and make sure not to split the yarn. There's a little spot over here where I'm splitting, so I have to rotate it a little bit to avoid splitting the yarn. If it was waste yarn, I don't care about splitting it, but of course this is no waste yarn to start, so I want it to be nice. Okay, work that all the way through. Okay, CX, stitch size 3.5, front and back, and we are going to do 2 rows. So you can just kind of gently hold the cast-on comb down from the center, just to help the stitches knit off. Okay, we're going NN, and our main stitch size is going to be 4.5. NN 4.5, no strippers still. And we are going to do 9 more rows. 1 to complete the cast on, and then 8 rows. Okay, now, just like mittens, gloves, socks, etc., we are going to move all the stitches onto one bed. I am moving the racking handle to about 9 o'clock, pulling up all the needles on the front in the range. I am moving my edge spring on the right all the way out of the work, all the way to the left, because I'm going to need the whole bed pretty much for this. I'm using the U100E on 3. Okay. Smooth move, as smooth move as you can across the bed. There we go. They all made it. Now, I was using a sufficiently large stitch size, so I didn't have to do a row of larger stitch size in order for that to work. Now we are going to do what we do for a mitten or glove, and take half of the stitches, put them on decker needles, and put them on the other bed. So I'm going to do everything from on the left side of center. Everything on the left side of center. Now that I have a cast-on comb, these are going to pop off fairly nicely if I actually hold it correctly. Yes. Try that again. Okay. Okay, with a cast-on comb, if I hold these correctly, these will pop off relatively nicely. So, gotta put pressure correctly. Yes, they all came off. And then I need the stitch holder. Slide that on. Going to use another decker comb. Do the next 20. Hopefully you have a set of 3 and are able to do this. You could put it on waste yarn and then pick up the stitches by putting one of these transfer tools through it to find the stitches and then take the waste yarn off. Okay, and the last one, I have 3 stitches at the end. So it is 63 stitches for me to transfer. Now we have to take the cast on comb out. It's definitely a little harder having a longer one to take it out when it's in the middle of the bed, when it hasn't dropped below the bed. So I have to fiddle with this on the right side. Pop! There it goes. Put the wire back in. Now the back bed, racking handle should be up, and I'm going to put all the needles down to left to center, and the needles up right of center, all the way to needle 63 on the right. Okay, so I'm going to put those 2 stitches together because I don't want to be pulling this and then have this come off. So I'm actually going to flip that down and up first. Now we are going to take these stitches off the Decker combs. I'm actually going to pull these stitches down a little bit to access the latches. Pull down a little bit more. Make sure all the latches are open. Okay. Take them off the stitch holders. Place them over the needles. Make sure they're all on. And pull it up. And then I like to take my tool to push these all down over it. Remember, I still don't have enough work here to really grab. I can kind of grab it a little bit with the orange tool and pull it down just a little bit. But trying to get those all off. Yes, that is going to be the fiddliest one. Try to grab it. Definitely don't want to pull that down and have the needles pop out of the stitches. You want to make sure you have a little downward pull on these. This is going to be the fiddliest part of the work by far, is this part here. Everything else is going to be pretty straightforward, I think. Okay, go for the next Decker comb. one of the latches closed again. Got to open it. Okay, place it on the needles. Pull them off. Push the work down. Now, if you wanted to, you could have stitched a waste yarn section first. That's definitely a possibility, and that would eliminate all this extra fiddliness here because you'd have something to grab onto. It's your choice. I don't generally do that. I just don't like to use waste yarn. I just don't like to use up too much waste yarn. And the last comb only has 3 little stitches for me. I'm going to put those stitches down. Now, if you watch my mittens, either my mittens videos, you know what I like to do on the right after decreasing. After putting in the round is to do a decrease, and I take the rightmost 2 stitches and move them over 1. So the decrease, the stitches that are stitched 2 together are 1 in from the edge. And this gives an advantage when you're doing the seaming later. You're not seaming through a double stitch. It makes it a little neater. Okay.